Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon. It's been a while, dah lama kita tak jumpa. So for today, um, I will try to finish up topic number 6 and a part of topic number 7. So I'll try to finish about 1.5 topics today. So let's share screen. So first, we will start with offshore. So if you remember, a very important structure in our course here, our banking and financial institutions, the very first meeting, I showed you the structure of our financial system. You still remember lah. On the left hand side, we have the financial markets. On the right hand side, we have financial institutions, right? And the financial markets we've done so far in terms of the money markets. Then we have the capital market, right? And then last week, if you managed to join the live session, or even I shared the videos as well, the guest speaker talked about derivatives market. So that's the third one. So now we left with one final market under the financial market, which is known as offshore. Okay, offshore market. And in Malaysia, the offshore market located in Labuan. Okay. This one area. It's part of federal territory. You will have names. It's belong to the federal government, and they set up what we call as an offshore market. Okay, so we will discuss further what does it mean by by the offshore market, and what will be the functions of offshore market, and why businesses, banks even have their operations in offshore market. Okay. So, and as compared to the normal ones that we see in terms of the banks, in terms of businesses, we call them here in the landed area here, call them as onshore market, but offshore means slightly literally it's by an island. Okay. And yeah, so that's what they set up the offshore market in Labuan anyway. So a few content, right, under this topic would be the characteristics and the benefits of offshore markets. What is the function of LFSA, Labuan Financial Services Authority, okay, and Labuan IBFC, right? The main reason why businesses set up their operations in offshore market is basically because of this reason, the tax structure. Okay, because it is known, okay, when we set up business operations in offshore, because of the tax reason. Okay, because of the tax reason. Okay. Offshore usually we associate offshore, we associate it with the tax haven. It's either tax free or sometimes very minimal tax. Yeah, okay. So meaning if you set up business there, okay, the government will not collect a lot of taxes there. Okay, so that's why some businesses set up their operations in offshore market. Okay, but obviously there's some activities that people can manipulate in terms of disguising the activities in order to enjoy this tax haven status. Okay, and also obviously we'll discuss what kind of businesses that we have in that particular offshore market, including banks, trust companies, insurance and fund management companies. Okay, so first up, we look at the offshore banking. Okay, so in general terms, there are no precise legal or general business meanings in terms of the offshore business or even offshore company. However, the offshore banking usually refers to matters relating to structuring of international business. Okay, most international businesses, when I will talk about international business, okay, the operations of the business must operate beyond its own country. Okay. The international business, you can find the context of home country, which is the origin of the business. Let's say in Malaysia, contohnya we have the international business, for example, Petronas. Okay, so the home country of Petronas is Malaysia, but Petronas also operates overseas, okay, outside Malaysia. And if they have an operation, let's say in Indonesia, katakanlah Indonesia, so Indonesia will be the host country. Host country. So host country will be the place where the business operates. Okay, so in Malaysia we have a lot of international businesses operates in Malaysia. For example, kalau we talk about automobiles, okay, we have companies like Honda, Toyota that have their business here. And to differentiate, okay, when we talk about international business, this international business not only sell their goods here, they set up their operations here as well. So meaning they don't just export. There's some products that you see in Malaysia, for example, even though from overseas, sometimes we just import directly, okay, without having them here in Malaysia. Okay, but when we talk about international businesses, they have to set up their business here. Okay, just like I mentioned earlier, for automobiles, we have Honda, Toyota. So we have other businesses. In financial services, we have all the international banks, for example, the insurance companies from overseas, for example. So all of those are relates with international businesses. Okay, family wealth management. Okay, those high net worth individuals who have plenty, or I can say a lot of money, and whereby they have to diversify their assets, for example, they might use the offshore banking as well. Okay, but when we talk about family wealth management, sometimes this offshore banking can be associated with something negative. Okay, when we talk about wealth management, sometimes not everything, but sometimes it can be associated with negative things. Okay, because as I mentioned before, when we talk about offshore, okay, we associate with what? The tax haven. Sometimes people use this offshore banking to hide, okay, to hide their income, to hide their wealth, in order to avoid tax. Okay, so that's why offshore banking sometimes can be associated with that negative connotation. Okay, asset protections, tax planning. Okay, so incorporating jurisdictions such as in Mauritius, ni antara yang ada lah, countries, we have a lot of countries with offshore banking, and most of them literally located in islands. In Mauritius, even though Brunei is not an island, it's just a small country in Borneo Island, right? But countries like Bermuda, right? Maybe a lot more countries in Caribbean, okay, have conducted this kind of offshore banking. And this offshore banking is legal, it's not illegal. It is a legal entity. Okay, and they are defined as carrying banking and financial activities in an environment which is essentially free of fiscal and exchange control. Okay, so I said earlier, it's a tax havens or low tax areas. Usually, if it's not tax free, sometimes the tax is very, very minimal as compared to if you conduct your business here in onshore. As I mentioned before, onshore, the tax, for example, you have to pay between 28%, 30%. There it will be much lower. So therefore, sometimes they prefer to operate in this offshore business. Okay, this includes favorable banking regulations. So the banking regulations slightly relaxed, okay, as compared to onshore. and it is considered less stringent, less strict, less, less strict as compared to if they operate here in onshore banking. And offshore banking also known as a secrecy area. Okay? Besides tax haven, we have higher level of secrecy. So that means as a customer, you can expect that the banking industry there have to maintain a high level of secrecy. However, as always, as everywhere, unless the government officials or even enforcement officers like police, for example, if they have to request for personal information related to your account, then they have to comply. But it is not as easy as domestic jurisdictions. So, talk about domestic jurisdiction, it will be here lah in normal onshore, in normal landed area. Okay. So what's the function of offshore banking? So offshore banks are formed as a subsidiary of a domestic or international bank. Okay. And they still accept deposits as always, if you remember the concept of banking. Banking or banks are the intermediaries. Okay, they receive deposits and they give out financing or loans. Okay, so obviously they will have to accept deposits as part of their banking operations. However, unlike those in onshore banking, like this area, like our area now, that receive deposits mostly in ringgit. Obviously, there's some banks receive foreign currency, but for offshore, most of them will receive foreign currency deposits, the majority. Okay. And so book taxations which do not fall within the domestic jurisdiction with international syndicated loans. Okay, this is another terms that maybe first time heard about it. When we talk about syndicated loans, so this is a loans or financing given by multiple banks. Okay, multiple banks to one customer. So for example, one customer, one big company requires 100 million US dollars, for example. And as a banker, as a one bank, you don't want to take high risks by giving out loan by yourself. What you can do, you can share this 100 million with multiple banks to fund this 100 million to one particular company. And that concept is known as syndicated loans. Okay? You combine your assets together with other banks and giving out loans to one particular customer. And when we talk about offshore banking, it will involve multiple banks from various countries. Okay, kalau kita pasal domestic ataupun the ones we have here in landed area, syndicated loans also there, but mostly within the local banks. But here it may involve other countries as well. They make loans which are tax effective to their clients, especially if their clients mostly offshore customers as well. Offshore clients. Okay, and avoid onerous debit equity ratios and lending restriction applicable in a more regulated jurisdiction. So this can be avoided as compared to regulated jurisdiction means the landed area. Okay, landed area. Like here in Peninsula or in Sabah and Sarawak lah. Okay. So that's number one. Okay, as a subsidiary, obviously, and they will receive funds from customers, majority using foreign denominations, foreign currency denominations. It can be US dollars, it can be Australian dollars, Singapore dollars, whatever foreign currencies that they intend to deposit. And as a financier, usually they will involve with other national banks for syndicated loans. Okay, so the function is more or less the same as the normal banks we have. Okay, but the main difference would be tax effectiveness, right? However, they obviously will charge interest on top of the normal loans. Okay? And usually the offshore clients will utilize this service. Okay? Offshore clients. Okay, as I mentioned before, they will provide clients with banking secrecy, a high level of banking secrecy as compared to the normal banks that we have. Okay? Even though every banks, if you know like uh, in Malaysia, we have one act known as PBPA, okay? Personal Data Protection Act. Okay? Personal Data Protection Act. So meaning those businesses who hold our data, who hold our information, are subject to this PDPA. So they cannot simply give out our information to third parties. To third parties. And unless you allow them to give. So that's why when you sign documents, okay, especially related to banks, related to companies that hold your information, a lot of companies you give out information kan, macam if you sign up for what, utility bills, your mobile phones punya data line, whatever, you have to provide them with your information, your name, your IC number, your addresses, your contact numbers. Those are personal data. Okay, and there's a section there that you allow them to use. That number one, you allow them to use, and second, you allow them to share the information. So if you agree, you sign, then they are free to use your information. Okay? But if you are smart enough, you boleh untick ataupun you don't tick at all that section, then they as a holder of our information cannot. If they distribute your information to third party, you can sue them, for example. Okay? So even here we have that secrecy, basically. But in the offshore banking, they have even higher lah in terms of the secrecy. They will not simply give information to third party unless, like I said, due to official reasons. Unless official, and this official must be on written format. Written format, especially if you involve crime, for example, must be from the courts. Then baru they disclose all the information. It's not simply give out information to third party. Okay, handle external borrowings or to consolidate intra-group finance and operations. Okay, this is very specific lah what they do in terms of give out loans, especially if the company wants to consolidate. When we talk about consolidate, meaning they need funding in order to merge atau combine, okay, intra-group finance or banking transactions. Okay. Cooperation with international trade, use offshore bank as a foreign or multi-currency management center. Okay, this is another element when we talk about offshore banking is the international trade. Okay, if you remember, one of the main user or main entities that use offshore banking is international businesses, and international businesses involve transactions beyond one country. Okay, and sometimes they have multiple currencies that they need to use. So therefore, it's easier for them if they have offshore banking accounts, okay, in order to exchange their currencies. Okay, so international finance companies' activities, including external loan raising. Okay, they want to raise funds, they can use offshore banking, provision of confirming finance to clients. So sometimes company needs guarantees. When we talk about confirming finance, it's more like a guarantee. Bank guarantee. Okay, so if some companies, for example, if they want to bid, okay, for projects, for example. Okay, to bid for projects. And in order to guarantee that this company can perform the project, they need to get confirmation from the bank, which is in the form of guarantee. So meaning the bank will assure uh, the project uh, issuer that this company yang nak apply or bid for the project can do the project, number one, and obviously they have the finance to do the project. Okay, so again, offshore banking can provide this, right? Block discounting, ini dah detail lah, what kind of information, what kind of activities. Usually block discounting and factoring later on I will explain in detail when we talk about the type of facilities that the banks will do, especially in topic number 7 later on. And on top of that, we have leasing as well. Here they provide leasing activities. Okay. Now we want to see the regulatory authorities in Labuan. So obviously, still even though in Labuan, we have, if you remember, we have SC and we have Bank Negara. They both still considered as authority in Labuan, but there's one entity specialized only for Labuan, okay, which is Labuan FSA, as I mentioned before, Labuan Financial Services Agency. Okay. So in Labuan, companies incorporated in the jurisdiction carry out either trading or non-trading activity on or even basically on the island. On the island. So a non-trading company is one whose activity is related to holding investment. Okay, so usually when we talk about non-trading, mostly they are related with services, okay, including financial activities. Okay, so that's why investment, stocks, shares, loan deposit, all of the banking activities is part of non-trading. Kalau trading means you buy and sell goods. Okay, non-trading means mostly related to services. Whereas trading company typically generates profit by buying and selling. Okay, as I mentioned before, buying and selling products either to customers in the international markets. So in either case of trading or non-trading activities, the essential elements of substance should be subscribed to by these companies. So the LFSA, the Labuan FSA is the authority on top of, we have the Securities Commission and we have Bank Negara, we have Labuan FSA. Okay, formerly known as LOFSA, okay, but now it's known as Labuan FSA. Yeah, sometimes it's short LFSA. So it's focused on business development and also promotion of the markets, and they also process applications. So meaning if you intend to operate there in Labuan, for example, for the offshore markets, you have to apply in terms of the licenses, in terms of application in order to operate there. The Labuan FSA will approve the applications, and obviously they will develop national electric policies and everything related to Labuan offshore, okay, in terms of administration, enforcement, and incorporate all the companies. Okay, so it's like a one-stop center, I can say. It's one-stop center. You have to apply via Labuan FSA. Okay, they will approve it, and then they will administer and enforce, meaning they will do all the enforcement, they will do all the monitoring and so on. Okay, and they will deregister as well. If your company against the law, they will deregister your company. So it's like I said, it's a one-stop center. Center for offshore market in Malaysia. So anything got to do with offshore, we have to go through Labuan FSA. So why we have to have one additional institution? We have already SC, we have already Bank Negara. So this to give the sovereignty. sovereignty to the Labuan uh, jurisdictions because it is a standalone. It is a standalone, let's say, area lah, standalone area, and to give them uh, power basically to operate on its own. Even though somehow Labuan FSA still comply with this function and Ban Negara's guideline. So basically, the challenge that Labuan FSA is to strategically position Labuan as a vibrant financial center in the region. So we cannot say that Labuan is the largest institution in terms of market and offshore market. It is one of the small ones, I can say. Bear with me, we can try to look up. Yeah, fine. Something like this. I have another slide actually for offshore. So you can see here in Malaysia, obviously you know the map, and so our country is located here in the Asian region. So in Asia, we have 8 markets: Japan, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, and here we have Labuan, one of them. Labuan, Malaysia, Macau, Palau. I'm not sure Palau is part of Philippines, but anyway. So these are considered main markets offshore in in Asian region. And then we have a lot of Oceania region. Okay, some of the countries also for the first time already, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, New Zealand, obviously, and the small ones. Okay, but if you see by the circle here doesn't represent just a simple circle. It represents the value of the assets. The value of the assets. So Middle East, very small numbers. North America is also considered small. Here we have the US and Bermuda. But majority of the offshore activities located here in the Central American, like I said, in the Caribbean island, the Bahamas, Barbados, so on. So these are considered the main offshore locations, right? So these are based on IMF, yeah, International Monetary Funds, although it might be audited a few years ago, but this is basically the top 60 offshore financial centers around the world. Okay, around the world. So the label is with yellow, it means the country by itself. City like Malaysia, Labuan is part of just one city, it's not a country at its own. And the white ones is the island, the island, part of a country, part of a country. Okay, I explain why I'm not sure. Puerto Rico, for example, here is part of, it's a jurisdiction of the United States, for example. Here, Guernsey, Isle of Man, Jersey, all of those are part of the Great Britain, for example. Like Palau just now, maybe is, like I said, like part of Philippines. Okay, maybe the Cook Islands here, part of Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so this is the offshore, okay, the offshore market that we have around the world. Okay, so Labuan FAC basically have to compete with a lot of offshore markets around the world. That's why that's one of the challenges lah, to ensure that investors, businesses try to use Labuan as a center, okay, as a part of preferred destinations, okay, for businesses to operate. Okay, so that's one of the function of Labuan FSA. So in order to achieve this, okay, to become the vibrant financial centers, Labuan FSA embarks on a two-pronged plan. Okay, prongly, basically, serampang dua mata lah, means they have to develop two strategies or use one strategy to encounter two objectives, okay, by developing what we call as Labuan IBFC, okay, by creating integrated business and financial centers. This is Labuan International Business and Financial Center, okay, which offers a lot of products and services for all offshore markets. But the one of the unique thing as compared to 60, if you see just now, 60 financial centers in terms of offshore, is this part, the development of Islamic instruments. Okay, similar like what we've done for Islamic finance. Okay, so one unique characteristics of our financial services in Labuan will be the focus on Islamic instruments, the Islamic products and services for the customers. Okay, so that's why Labuan IBFC try to portray or try to place our Labuan markets as Islamic centric or Islamic, Sharia compliant instruments offered to the customers. Okay. And Labuan FSA also taking measures to attract a greater number of professionals and also skilled workers to live and work in Labuan in order to support the industry. And if you aware as well, Labuan is also another area which is besides the offshore status, okay, they also consider as a tax-free area in the country, just like Langkawi, for example. So people live there will have a cheaper or lower cost of living as compared to their neighbors in Sabah, for example. Right. So here are the roles and functions. Yeah, I will highlight just a few like you're responsible setting the objectives. Usually will align with Securities Commission and Bank Negara. Promotions and development, as I mentioned before. Supervision, to supervise activities, especially relates to the banks, insurance companies, fund management, okay, and enforcement, the administer and enforcement. Okay, so the whole thing that I mentioned earlier, why they set up the Labuan FSA at the first place as a one-stop center, so that's their roles and function from A to Z. Okay, so they will continue to review all the relevant acts, okay, to ensure the growth and also to ensure the supervision of the business and financial activities there. Okay, and obviously align with Bank Negara and also the taxation also remain with the IRB, Internal Revenue, or actually from that even though it's tax haven, but still there will be some tax will be collected. So obviously the linkage with inland revenue still remain intact. Okay, so authority acts as one stop agency I mentioned before in terms of licenses, approvals, and so on. Then we have like Labuan PBF3023, as I mentioned before, set up by Labuan FSA to further boost in terms of marketing. Usually why they set up this one is to market the offshore markets, right? To enhance the attractiveness of Malaysia as a hub for offshore as well. And obviously the focus on Islamic. Because this is the uniqueness that they can sell to others. Kalau nak cakap the normal business activities, every financial markets ataupun every offshore markets provide the same thing. Okay, I showed you just now all the 60 top financial offshore financial markets, but one of the main thing that we can sell is the Islamic finance part. Okay, and then they rename it Labuan BRC and so on. This one. And why or what would be the advantages of Labuan IBFC? Highly flexible tax framework. Okay, so businesses that operates in Labuan can benefits what we call as a double tax agreement. So what does it mean by double tax agreement? Some countries, they charge tax, okay, even though the money generated from overseas. Okay, so imagine one company, US company, for example, right, operates their business here in Malaysia. Okay, so they have to pay tax in Malaysia and be able to LHDN, bagi hasil ataupun inland revenue. And on top of that, the income that they generated here in Malaysia will be taxed in the US as well. What does it mean by double tax? They'll be taxed twice in the host country and at the home country. However, if they operate in Labuan, okay, they can avoid that because they have double tax agreement. So meaning they just have to pay tax in Labuan, which is much cheaper, and they can avoid paying tax in their home country. So they have agreements with 70 countries across the globe. Okay, so this is one example advantage why the businesses can set up or may set up their business in Labuan, for example, in order to avoid this double tax. The double taxation, you have to pay tax twice. Okay? That's number one. Progressive legislative environment. So they will enhance and they will improve. When we talk about legislative, basically it relates with law, legal environment. So from time to time, the governing body, which is Labuan FSA, Bank Negara Malaysia, for example, will always review updates. It's not static. It will change from time to time to give advantage to the existing statutes and obviously to give more flexibility. Okay, unlike some countries, which is quite passive in terms of legislative. So here in Malaysia, especially in Labuan, in terms of offshore markets, the government will always review. If not, obviously it's not on annual basis, but every 10 years at least they will review and make changes in order to make sure that the business environment will be open to the changes in terms of technology, in terms of how the business run their operations. So it is very all them receptive by all the businesses. They like this kind of progressive changes, not to become more restrict, but to encourage business to advance in terms of their operations. Strategic locations, because location wise, here we refer to geographic location. So as you know, Malaysia is situated in between two largest economies. I say growing, but now they are more than growing already. They are major powers in the world, China and India. besides their huge numbers of markets, they have, you know, as a country, memang huge, China and India individually, and they have uh, the largest markets, two largest markets, one in the world. So the close proximity between Labuan and these two, countries basically play uh, important role lah for business operations to set up their operations in Labuan, for example. They to tap into growing investment opportunities, especially also in Southeast Asia. Okay. Nowadays, Southeast Asia countries like Vietnam, for example, are growing much faster than us actually. Right? Vietnam, they are growing. Okay. In fact, during pandemic, they are the only country that are considered have a positive growth. Okay. All of other countries, including we, including us, Malaysia, so Singapore, even Indonesia, Thailand, all have a negative growth, but only Vietnam has a positive growth due to the pandemic. So yeah, so that's why Labuan also can play that role to tap into this growing area in Southeast Asia. Okay, and as I mentioned before, focus on Sharia compliant products. Okay, this is where uh, very few markets that have this. Okay, maybe some in the Middle East, yes, but Middle East is slightly far from the location that I mentioned before. So therefore, IBFC play a very important role to attract businesses to set up their operations in Labuan because they offer a lot of China compliant products, and together with what we call as MIFC, Malaysian International Financial Center, uh, they try to attract more, and obviously to attract more experts to work in Labuan. Okay. So here are some of the benefits, as I mentioned before. The tax is very small. So for example, as I mentioned before, kalau tax in on land, kita lah in Peninsula Malaysia or even in Sabah and Sarawak, the rates, it depends on the size of the company. It can be from 20 to maximum 28 to 30%. Imagine up to 30%. I put it here. As high as 30% tax you have to pay after deducting uh, all the operating expenses and all the interest, the income statement, you need to deduct all the operating expenses, all the interest payments, okay, the EBT, then you have to pay the tax. Okay, but for IBFC, the tax rate is only about 3%, okay, of net profits, of net profits, or a fixed amount of 20,000, whichever higher. Okay, okay, to ROC, register of commission, which is the Labuan FSA. Okay, so very minimal. Okay, very minimal tax. Okay, 20,000 is the minimum line, or 3% of the net profits. Okay, 3% of the net profits. Okay, so income from legal accounting will be exempted. Okay, but this is from these dates. Abatement of tax for business exempted again, 50%. It's and exemption also for dividend payment. If you are looking from on-land ataupun onshore point of view, dividends are taxable. Okay, dividend payment are taxable. Okay, here are exempted. Okay, distribution of trust, royalty payments, interest paid, non-residents are exempted. Okay, and all technical and management fees also will be exempted. So a lot of benefits lah, okay, to the company if they set up their business here in Labuan. Okay, exemption of stamp duty. Again, this is payable to LFDN, so you have to pay for stamp duties. Secrecy and confidentiality, actually controls similar lah, like from bank negara. So bank negara will put the control. When we talk about exchange control, we are talking about currency. currency exchange. Okay. And on top of that, so to make sure that the market itself is comprehensive, in 2000, in the year 2000, about 20 years ago, they come out with what we call as Labuan International Financial Exchange, or LFX. Okay, so this is similar like Bursa that we have. It is, and in fact, LFX is part of Bursa Malaysia subsidiary. It is a Bursa Malaysia subsidiary whereby companies can issue shares, but limited to participants of the offshore markets in Labuan only lah. Okay, based in Labuan obviously. So this to complement, okay, the business of financial services that they have in Labuan. Okay, and the focus is on listing of financial instruments. So a lot of financial instruments you've learned before, right? You have all those in money markets, you have bond, for example, in capital market, you have shares also. All those can be listed in LFX. Okay, so this is why they have this LFX on top of the normal market that they have in Bursa. This is basically to facilitate influx of funds to listing and trading in Labuan, the offshore markets. And LFX will strive to be recognized as investor friendly, transparent, obviously, because in any particular markets, you need to be this transparent, because if it's not transparent, investor will not go to your markets. You need to be transparent. And obviously, networking. Okay, nanti baca lah ni Okay, this is another part lah, under LFX. Okay, so these are some of the relevant websites that you can go through in terms of to find more information. So in short, offshore market in Malaysia, we only have one, which is in Labuan, focus on international business and also financial services. One of the main attractiveness why people set up their operations. It can be international business, it can be financial services, and financial services includes banks, insurance companies, and trust fund, and also fund management, as I mentioned before. So number one tadi kalau ingat is because of the tax reason. Okay, lepas tu dia punya regulations, legislative, progressive legislative, and then the comprehensiveness of the market. Okay, comprehensiveness. They have the regulation side of it, the business side of it, the marketing side of it. And also they have also includes the financial exchange market there. And on top of that, the most important part, they also focus on Sharia compliant products that makes different from the other offshore markets in the world. Okay, so that's about it. Maybe later on I can share. There's another slide and then this one. This one lagi detail lah. If you want this, let me know later. Okay, what does it mean by offshore so banyak, why they want to have offshore markets. So offshore associate with offshore financial centers. Like I said tadi, the secrecy, the privacy parts. Okay, but sometimes people can manipulate it for illegal purpose lah, illegal purpose. Okay, the functions. I mentioned this before. This is specific for the facilities of the banks, like savings account, the current account, similar like the one we will discuss later on. Okay, so financial centers, you can see we are not even the top 10 global financial centers. all some other information. Okay, so that's topic number 6, the offshore market. So that's complete our financial market side. Okay, I recap, and we have the money markets, whereby under there we have the money market itself and also the foreign exchange. And then we have the capital market, we have bond and equity, the share markets. And then we have the derivatives. Okay, derivatives, we have the futures, the forwards, the options, the swap, for example. And then today we have the offshore, right, which is in Labuan. So Labuan, we have the Labuan FSA as the regulatory body. We have the Labuan IBFC as the marketing arms to promote Labuan, and also we have Labuan Exchange to trade or to raise funds. So that's one side, which is the financial firm. For topic number 7 onwards, we are shifting to the financial institutions. We've discussed a bit in topic number 1, if you remember. Kita go through sebenarnya a bit for the banking and the non-banking. Okay, under the banks, if you remember, we have the commercial banks, Islamic banks, investment banks, right? For the non-banking sides, we have the insurance, what else? The pension funds, the insurance and Takaful, obviously, the development finance. Okay, but for the next part, which is topic 7 onwards, we are focusing on two main, okay, or two major parties or institutions, okay, for the banking sides, which is the commercial banks and also investment bank, together with investment companies, right? So for the next 2 or 3, we will focus more on commercial banks, especially the next one, topic number 7, which is we'll discuss a lot about commercial banks, and then later on the bank management and also regulations of banks. Okay. So, but before we go into details of topic number 7, let's take a short break, okay, before we move on to topic number 7. Okay, let's take 5. Dia ada request pasal the international syndicated loan. So as I mentioned before, syndicated loans mean uh, is a combination, I can say, a combination of banks, multiple banks, okay, whereby they will join, okay, their funds or their assets to finance one customer. So meaning company A, contohnya lah, one company A wants to borrow 100 million US dollars. Okay. And if maybe bank A, another bank, katakanlah, the bank has that money, but they don't want to take the risk alone. Okay. Because 100 million US dollars is a huge amount of money. So what they can do, they can share, okay, they can share that 100 million instead of giving out 100 million from their own money by themselves. They share, let's say, by four banks. Okay? Bank A, B, C, and D. There are four banks. And let's say still the bank A takes the majority. Instead of 100 million, they will fork out 40 million, for example. 40 million. So we have 60 million split evenly by the other three banks. So meaning bank A 40 million, bank B 20 million, bank C 20 million, and bank D 20 million. So the total of 100 million from four banks. Okay, and that total 100 million will be given to one customer. Okay, so that is what we call as syndicated loan. But the difference between the normal syndicated loans with the international, it means that the participants, the banks, can be from multiple countries. Okay, so that's what meant by syndicated loan, or specifically international syndicated loan. Okay, so next we will go through the topic number 7, commercial banking. Okay, commercial bank. So on top there, you can see a few examples. We have CIMB, right, Bank, and RFB. Name a few. So I will not go through everything under this topic number 7. Okay, and bear with me some of the topics or the content that I will go through later on. You may heard it when we discussed in topic number one, but like I said during the topic number one, we just talked briefly about that. We try to expand, okay, to go into details in this topic. And obviously, there will be some areas that you heard it for the first time. Right. So here we have five areas that we go through. Here, obviously, some introductions. The the main or the important parts of banking, obviously, where the sources and the uses of funds come from, and go through uh, in terms of the accounts or the banks, what will be the items under the banks, uh, bank statements. Okay, not our bank statement, I mean the banks punya statement of financial positions, for example. What are the risks? Okay, and in fact, I think I will stop dekat risk sekejap lagi. Okay, we will go through the credit risk, the liquidity, the interest rate, and also what is operational risk. The banking products, I'll put a star here, okay, because you need to do something. When we talk about banking products and services, we have two areas, deposits and loans and advances. Okay, so I'll put a star there because you have a task. Okay, lama tak buat task kan. So if you remember during our initial meetings, our first, second, third meetings, uh, we've made groups, okay, whereby you have all the banks. Okay, they have 9 groups if I'm not mistaken. 8 or 9 groups, I can't remember, but yeah. So continuation from that, right? You will be given the second task, okay, related to depository and also loans and advances. Okay, I will go into details later on. And lastly, number 5 is about card services and internet banking. This is basically the current scenarios because we are shifting from traditional to more towards banking, right? So a lot of new products includes card services, the internet banking, or maybe we can add some more, uh, modern products such as what else? Yeah, consider baru the e-wallet, okay, and and a few other investment related products as well. We will discuss later about that. But before we go into that, okay, we have to clear about what does it mean by banks, especially the commercial banks. So for banks, especially commercial banks, we have one act, a very important act, which is known as FSA, Financial Services Act 2013, or in short FSA. Okay, this FSA supersede, okay, when I said supersede, means they replace the old act. Okay, those who work in a bank in 1990s, 2000s, right, even 2000, prior to 2013, we have one act that very, very important, which is known as Banking and Financial Institutions Act. I can't remember the year, but 1989 if I'm not mistaken. Banking and Financial Institutions Act, or in short, kita panggil dia BAFIA. Banking and Financial Institutions Act, or in short BAFIA. So this is very important act last time, okay, prior to 2013. Okay, if your parents, your siblings works in a bank prior to 2013, you can ask them. They should know what is BAFIA. Those who works in the bank, they have to familiarize with BAFIA. It's really, really important with regards to secrecy, with regards to your duties as banker. You need to follow exactly, or else you can be, penalized if you go against it. Okay, but Bank Negara Malaysia, uh, I can say improve. They want to improve the acts and they come out with a more comprehensive act. which is known as Financial Services Act 2013. And for BAFIA, maybe part of them masuk dalam FSA because before this, the Banking and Financial Institutions Act, and then we have the Insurance Act as well. So BAFIA is for the banks and finance company, and we have also Insurance Act for the insurance companies. But with the introduction of FSA, these two acts combine to become one. So because all of these, the banks, the insurance company are part of financial services, kan? So they combine and merge into one act, financial services act. Okay. And for the Islamic parts, the Islamic banks, for example, or Sakaful, they have the Islamic Financial Act 2013. Okay, which is known as IFSA, IFSA. Okay, so for FSA is for the conventional ones. For Islamic, they have IFSA or IFSA. Okay, so by definition, from FSA, the bank or the commercial banks is a person. Okay, they label them as a person because in business, the entity is liable for themselves. So we can define them as a person licensed to carry on banking business. Okay, banking business. So in order to operate legally, okay, in terms of the nature of operations of banks, they have to get a license. Okay, so license datang daripada siapa? Who gave the license? Obviously, Bank Negara Malaysia lah. Okay, so every institutions that want to operate in the country needs to get license from Bank Negara. Okay, so here are some of the functions, I can say, of banks. Okay, number one, to receive deposits. They receive deposits in the form of, these are quite common, common accounts, the current accounts, savings. Other similar account includes fixed deposit, for example. Okay, so those are deposits from the depositors, and they will keep their money in the bank. Okay, remember, I always nak memudahkan you to understand. The bank will sit in the middle, okay, the middle of the channel. Okay, so deposit come from here. Okay, and the bank will channel out in the form of financing. Okay, or loans. Okay, or loans. Okay, receive money from depositors. Okay, bank will pull all the money, and then the money will be channeled to the financing side. Okay, so that's the function number one, receiving deposits. Okay, number two, paying and collecting checks. Okay, this is one of the instruments that slightly or slowly being discouraged or slowly being phased out from the banking system. We still have checks, you know, okay, but the numbers of usage becoming less and less every day because we have more faster alternatives, more, you know, secure alternatives as well in the form of other remittances lah. Termasuklah we can cerita pasal interbank transfers. We can alternatively use e-wallet to make payments. However, usually when we talk about instant transfer, interbank transfer, or even e-wallet, usually the amount is small. But when we talk about huge amount of money, sometimes people still prefer to use checks, okay, especially for businesses. Okay, so that's another function for the banks. Okay, payment and collecting checks. And they have to transfer the physical checks from one place to another uh, in order to make payments. Okay, even though we have the technologies nowadays, but in terms of security, okay, we need to transfer one check from one place to another place before the other party to make payments. So that's why, if you remember, I'm not sure whether you're aware or not, when we talk about payment by checks, it will not take effect immediately. It will take time. Okay? Especially kalau outstation checks, it can take up to 5 days to clear the payment because we need to wait the physical checks to move from location A. You katakan you deposit in bank A in location A. You want to transfer the amount of money to your account, and it will take uh, few days, up to 5 days sometimes, just to make sure you transfer or receive the payment. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, this is the financing part. Has the provision of finance, lending money, includes leasing, factory, okay, everything. It's part of provision of finance lah. Guarantees, okay, and any other business as stipulated by the negara. Okay, others. So yang tak ada kat sini, maybe I can say like apa security deposits, security, macam security box kalau you perasan one of the services provided by banks that maybe tak ramai yang guna, which is security box. You can put your valuables in a certain banks that have these facilities, security box. Okay. So if you want to put your, sometimes people used to keep their important documents, especially documents like it can be your birth certificates, it can be your shares with certificates, you can put your geran tanah dalam tu, all the important documents, valuable items you can put there. Okay, so those are part of services that we provide. You have to pay the fees. So commercial banks is considered the largest or the main players. That's why in terms of numbers, when you can see commercial banks have the most numbers, the most branches. If you go out on the streets, the majority of the banks that you can see mostly are commercial banks, especially if it's in the small areas. For example, most of the bank that they have is part of commercial banks. And one main characteristics as compared to others is the provision of current accounts. So if you remember tadi, bear with me 1 second. When we receive deposit, one of them is current account. This current account is only available in commercial banks, not other financial institutions. Meaning, when we talk about deposit account savings, for example, other banks may offer savings as well. For example, if you remember dalam Development Finance Institution, DFI, we have Bank Simpanan Nasional. We can save money there. They have saving account, gyro and whatnot. Okay, but for current accounts, you cannot open in Bank Simpanan or SME Bank. They don't have current accounts. Okay, current account only available in commercial bank, and this is where the most important element of current account, which is check facilities. Okay, why people open up current account? Another reason is to have the checkbook facility. Okay, checks only available for current account. And these checks only available in commercial banks, basically. Okay, so that's the uniqueness of products, deposit products for commercial banks, not available in other institutions. Okay, so to break down further, okay, out of the 4 just now, so these are the functions that we can see. Okay, it's basically part of the 4 yang tadi, this one. Okay, but to see in more details, okay, we can label them, the functions and the roles of commercial banks. Number 1, as a mobilization of savings. Okay, the deposits just now. Provision of facilities for payments and deposits. Number 2. Okay, provision of facility for payment means they can provide the ATM. Okay, because people can withdraw money and can deposit using ATM. So that facility, uh, uh, deposit maybe not using ATM, like we can transfer funds, but in terms of deposit, maybe we can use CDM, cash deposit machines, for example. The online banking, for example. Okay, so all of these facilities is part of this provision of facilities for payment and also deposits. Here's deposit lah. Deposit. And number 3 is financing. Okay, this is for financing. So we have a lot of financing. Here we'll go through later. Okay, for the types of loans and advances. Okay, one of the function that they have uh, to assume, number 4, is to finance the government. Okay, how they finance the government? By purchasing government securities. Okay, so all commercial banks, okay, will purchase government securities whenever the government issue securities. So if you remember in the money market, we have the government side and also the corporate sides that issue instruments. Okay, so the government securities like MBS, treasury bills, all of those will be issued because the government needs funding. Okay, and who are the ones who purchase those instruments? The commercial banks. Okay, majority commercial banks will purchase this. When I said they purchase, indirectly they are financier because when they purchase, meaning they give the money to the government. The government will use the fund for their expenditures. Okay, and then we will return back in the future lah. It can be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever. Okay, so it's a form of financing. It's a form of loans actually to the government, okay, by purchasing government securities. And lastly, similar like last time I mentioned, there is facilities as authorized by bank negara. Okay, so mention tadi, current savings FD, okay, to make payments like checks, ATM facilities, internet banking, granting loans for business and individuals. WC here refers to working capital for businesses. They need capital, short-term basis. They can make loans from the bank. In financing of government through purchases of government securities and also treasury bills. Okay, and provision of various banking facilities includes cross-border payment. If you want to transfer funds from one country to another, custody services like I cakap tadi, safe deposit box, SDB, SDB, safe deposit box, foreign exchange, you want to exchange money, this is remittance. Okay, if you have brothers or sisters last time study overseas, your parents want to send money, so we use remittance, telegraphic transfer, telegraphic transfer or TP. So that's part of remittance or cross-border payment services whereby we want to transfer funds. So let's say later on, you apply for a scholarship for your masters, for example, dapat, then you can go to Australia, for example. Okay, so your sponsor, he will send money to you using remittance. Okay, they will send from Malaysia to your account in Australia. Okay, what kind of service? This one, cross-border payment, remittance, or in short, the telegraphic transfer. Okay, so the details nanti lah when we talk about the products and services, we will talk about it later. Okay, but these are the functions that the bank provide to the customers. Okay, so for you guys, maybe tak guna semua. Okay, at least for now, you are here. Okay, of course, you will have savings account. Okay, savings account. I think everybody should have savings account. Okay, maybe you tak explore other types yet. Okay, but terms of provision, maybe yes, you use ATM or even cash deposit machines. Checks, I'm not sure. So sure, not everybody may use it. Savings book pun, I don't think so we use this anymore. If you just open an account, most of the bank accounts are paper bookless ataupun saving bookless. We don't have books anymore. All are internet based or internet based statement based passbook. You don't have the physical passbook. I don't have anymore. Okay, loans maybe you don't have this facility yet. Government memang kita tak lah. This is basically is between them with the government. And kat sini maybe some of them you may use it. Okay. Any question? Kalau nak tanya apa, just let me know. Now I want to talk about the sources and uses of funds, okay, and also the structure of statements, financial statements of banks. Okay. So when I said source, here is sumber, maknanya where the money comes from. And when I said uses of funds, where ataupun what the banks use the money for. Right? So this would be the incoming. So basically this is the inflow. So this would be the outflow. From banks' perspective, remember we are talking about sources and uses of funds from banks' perspective. So where the money comes from for the bank and where will be the money go, okay, out to. So here are some, if not all, the majority of the major sources and uses of funds for banks. Okay, for banks. So let's look at the sources of funds first. Okay, so we have first the capital, the reserves, and the profit. So this is basically the initial, if we talk about deposit, about the capital, this is basically the initial investment that they have. When they want to start it off their banks, they will have what we call as a paid up capital. Okay, paid up capital. And once they operate, after a few years, they will have a reserve. Okay, obviously, they will get the profit first, and then they will keep it as a reserve. And this reserve will go from 1 year to another to ensure that they have enough capital, okay, to sustain their business. Okay, so that will be their sources. So the capital will be the initial sources. Okay, however, this capital will grow from one time to another because the company get profit every year. So that profit will be, if not all, part of it will be kept as a reserves. Okay, currencies also, some foreign currencies, okay, from deposits, but majority of the funds will come from the deposits. Okay, from the deposits. So if you remember, banks have multiple deposit accounts, savings account, current account, fixed deposits, and any other types of deposits will be considered as the majority of funds. Okay, I can say about 70% at least, okay, 60 to 70% of sources of funds for the banks comes from deposits. They come from deposit. And if you remember I said earlier, we want to know the sources and uses, and on top of that, we want to see the statements. For the deposits, okay, in the bank statements, okay, financial statements, the deposit will be parked under liability. Okay, deposits, okay, will be parked under liability. Why is it part of liability? It's not a deposit, it's an asset. Okay, but no. For banks, deposits will be considered as liability because they are obliged to pay back to the depositor, because depositor just park the money there and they will take back the money later, right? So it's liability to the bank. Bank are liable for that money and they have to pay back that deposits to the customers. So that's why in the account, deposits will be part of liabilities. Kan dalam statement kita ada assets, terus liability and equity, kan? So deposits will be here in the liability side. Okay. borrowings obviously lah from liability as well. So besides deposit, sometimes the company needs to borrow. The company here means the bank. The banks needs to borrow money. If you remember, one of the function of money market is to borrow money if they are in deficit. So bank needs sometimes to borrow money. Okay, so they can borrow and they can get funds from other financial institutions. Okay, and these companies, insurance or provident funds, may deposit there as well. So this is sometimes part of deposit juga lah, but the source come from this institution. Why they separate here, insurance, provident funds? Because these two institutions, insurance and provident funds, have a lot of cash, a lot of cash. Okay, because the nature of their business, the withdrawal are not based on daily basis. Okay, we cannot withdraw simply withdraw. Okay, unlike macam kalau currently Provident and Pension Fund ni quite famous because the government just announced you can withdraw 10,000 ringgit from your account number one, for example. But before this, that account number one, you cannot withdraw. Okay, you cannot withdraw from the Provident Pension Funds, which is in our case EPF. Okay, so EPF will have a lot of funds, and some of them they will deposit in the bank. Okay, deposit in the bank, so that will be source of funds to the bank. And any other form of liabilities lah, they will part as the sources. Okay, and for users of funds, okay, for users of funds, okay, they will purchase currencies. Obviously, they will sometimes deposit with other financial institutions if they have surplus. Okay, remember, if they surplus, okay, they want to get extra income, they deposit with other financial institutions, short-term basis. Okay, but majority of the funds, kalau source is deposits, but for loans, majority of the funds will be used for this activity, loans and advances. Okay, they will give up loans, a lot of loans, because if you remember, the loans when your returns is much higher as compared to the rest of this. Okay, loans and advances will be the main bulk of activities that they have, right? They will purchase securities, you remember just now, to finance government by purchasing securities, either the government most of the time, sometimes private debt securities. PDS is private debt from the corporates. They may invest in gold and forex reserves. They put or invest their money overseas, and they invest in any other assets. They will use it okay, for others. Case of other asset for investment. Okay, so that's the sources and uses of funds. So if deposits are liability, so loans and advances will be assets for them. Okay, because these are the income will comes from the loans and advances. This will be the assets of the company, the loans. So deposit will be part under liabilities, but the loans will be part under assets. So this is example of one bank, CIMB Bank, with a total asset. Again, this is quite outdated, 10 years ago. Update the latest one. With a total assets of almost 250 billion. Okay. Imagine this is CIMB. So if you look at Maybank, maybe much higher because Maybank is the largest bank in the country. With a total shareholders fund of 20.6 billion. Okay, so the difference you can see would be the liability side. So we have 25 billion funds, net profit 800 million for just one quarter, 800 million. So kalau in a year, you can see in billions already lah. Okay, the profits will be in billions. So in earning per share is quite high, almost 12 cents earning per share. So for every one share you have, you can expect to earn about 12 cents. Okay, with a global presence. Besides Malaysia, obviously they operate in Singapore, Indonesia, right, and any others, includes the UK as well. Maybe in a form of subsidiaries, it can be in a form of joint venture, especially if it's in Indonesia. Okay, they have to joint venture with the local banks. Ingat CIMB is something nama bank dia. They have to combine with local bank. They tak boleh operate as a CIMB as one bank. CID Niaga or something like that. I can't remember the name of the bank. And some maybe they operate as a office representative only in some countries. Maybe they don't have a proper branch, but they have all of representative office. I discussed in the first meeting. The staff strength is over 35,800. Again, this is considered outdated. Okay, CIMB have gone through restructuring process juga. Okay, restructuring process. There's multiple stages of restructuring. When I said restructuring means they streamline the operations, meaning the numbers may be lower than this. It might be lower than this because there's a reduction of staffs happening last time for the past 10 years. I think 5 years ago, I remember. So this is example of income statement. So you need to be familiar with this as well because for task number 3 later on, you have to go through the income statement, the balance sheets of the banks of your choice. So this is the income statement, very streamlined. Yeah, the interest income and interest expenses because for banks, especially the conventional banks, kita panggil ni spread, the difference between interest income and interest expenses. So interest income will be generated from the financing side. Okay, they give out loans and they charge interest. So that will be interest income. And interest expenses come from their deposits. They receive deposit and they pay interest to their customers. Okay, so that will be the interest expenses. Okay, so here the net interest expense, the difference between the two, and then any other income from non-interest will be parked here. Okay. As you can see here, majority of the income datang from the non-interest income for this company lah, for this bank, maybe from fee-based activities yang bukan melibatkan interest, fee-based macam they charge you fees for, kalau before this lah, you want to transfer funds, you have to pay fees. You want to withdraw using maps, you have to pay fees. But now tak ada lah during pandemic, the government uplift benda tu. Okay, any other fees that you have to pay lah. Remittance, you have to pay fees, for example. So those are non-interest income. Okay, and that will be the total income, net income, minus the overheads. This is all the expenses lah. And by the way, I think you've gone through some of the annual statements before. So if you want to see the details, you need to see the notes. Okay, they don't list everything here. If you want to see what kind of overheads they have, expenses, you need to go to note 34 and they will list down everything in terms of rental if they have, in terms of salaries to the employees, payment to their board of directors, everything will be here under overheads. And then profits, right? Kalau ada impairment of losses, okay, this is basically kalau dia ada NPL, non-performing loans, everything will be here. Then profit before tax, and then they have to pay taxation. You can check the percentage here, or percent tax rate there, and net profits after taxation. So this is the amount for the year. So if compare from the previous year during 2008-2009, they dropped almost half from 2008 to 2009. Okay, and also the dividends. Okay, so this is from the income statement. From the balance sheet, okay, if you remember I said tadi loans and advances. Okay, loans and advances is part of the assets. Okay, and dalam case ni dia letak under other liability ni dia punya we call them deposits, dia masuk kat dalam ni. Okay, other liabilities. You need to read dalam notes ni lah to see. Okay. Okay, last part. Okay, before I end for today. Okay, risk, okay, of financial institution. So when we talk about risk, the categories of risk is actually more or less the same from one institution to another. Okay, but sometimes if you want to explain it might be different from one to another lah. So why financial institutions need to manage risk? Okay, this one point last week, if you watch the video or you attend, the talk ataupun the topic about derivatives last week pun, okay, we cannot zeroize risk. Okay, we cannot totally eliminate risk because risk is always be there, will always be there. Okay, what we can do is just to mitigate. We use the terms mitigation and mitigate. Okay, to minimize the risk. Okay, so why financial institutions need to manage risk? Basically, to ensure that their business operations to sustain. Okay, to sustain, and on top of that, to make sure that the returns to the owners, okay, the shareholders here, and owners here refers to shareholders, can be maximized. Okay, can be maximized. So that's why in banks, okay, banks especially, they will have at least a department or divisions called risk management division. Okay, so their function is to ensure that whatever decision that they make is based on calculated decisions to ensure that the risks that they will face will be at the minimum. Okay, so risk of financial intermediation have increased as Malaysian and overseas economies have become more integrated, especially with the borderless transactions nowadays. Okay, so we as a bankers in the financial economies will expose to a lot of risk. Meaning here, even the risk happen in other economies, in other part of the world, in the US, for example, here in Malaysia, we may suffer the same if we don't have proper risk management. We are exposed to the same risk. Okay? So financial institutions that have no foreign customers, even though no foreign customers, still can expose, okay, to the foreign exchange and sovereign risk. If the local customer ada kena mengena dengan foreign countries. For example, macam ni lah. Bank A. Okay, bank A is a local bank. Okay, and then they have customer A. They are local customer as well. So on the surface, you nampak, okay, both are locals, so we are not exposed to foreign exchange because both are locals. Not necessarily. The bank A still will expose to foreign exchange risk if even the customer A is local, because this customer may have their customers from overseas. Even though it's not directly their customer, kan? So customer A dia ada customer B. And this is international. So technically, indirectly, bank A are exposed to foreign exchange as well because they have customer from customer A. Because what happened? Imagine bank A give financing to customer A, and customer B is their customer. And if customer B from overseas cannot pay customer A, obviously customer A cannot repay the bank A. So therefore, even though we have no direct contact with customer B, but because of the nature here, somehow they are exposed. One of the risks, this is one of the risks, which is forex, foreign exchange. So let's look at the details of the categories. Okay, dia ada off balance dengan balance sheet risk ni. So let's look at the balance sheet risk first. Okay, we have the majority of the risk will be here, the credit risk. Then we have the liquidity risk, the interest rate risk, market risk, and insolvency risk. Okay, so all of these related to the balance sheets, okay, to the statements of their accounts. Okay, let's do one by one. So credit risk, number one. Okay, so in short, credit risk means inability of our customer to make repayment to us. So meaning you give credit to your customer cannot pay back. they can pay back to you. So this is risk of non-payment. Okay, non-payment of financing to the borrower. Okay, who are the borrower? Sorry, to the creditor lah. Kita bagi credit to the borrower, the lender, which is the bank, give loans to the borrower. However, the borrower cannot repay back. So credit risk, for example, you can see very clearly now. We're now talking about now is now lah, during the pandemic. Okay, so that's why in order to avoid non-payment, okay, even though technically this is government incentive lah atau government initiatives, the government offers moratorium. Dengar moratorium. Boleh pernah baca or heard in the news about moratorium. Okay, whereby customers or borrowers who have financial difficulties, okay, can exclude to make payments, okay, for a specified time. Okay, during the first moratorium, the government includes everyone. Okay, everyone during the first PKP, the first MCO, whereby everyone stranded at home. They cannot go out to work masa tu. I think around March, April, that time. The government provides moratorium for everyone. Okay, up until October, if I'm not mistaken. So everyone who have credit with the banks can make excuse. You are excused basically to not make any payments. Okay, but this will not affect the credit risk to the bank lah. But why they have this moratorium basically to avoid these non-payments. Okay, but that's not solution actually. This is just a government punya initiatives to avoid a lot of non-payments to the bank. Okay, so how this credit risk arise is because of the promised cash flow. Remember, when we talk about loans, usually it will involve quite long term, okay, medium to long term loans. Okay, even though some loan may be short term, but majority of the loans can be considered as medium to long term. Okay, take hire purchase lah, hire purchase for car financing up to 9 years. And when we take a loan for 9 years, we promise to pay the bank basically for 9 years, and you have to pay monthly for 9 years. However, can you assure you can pay that for 9 years? Okay, on papers, yes, because we promise to pay them based on current income. If we apply for a loan, what we give them, we will give them our salary slip gaji. Okay, and on the slip gaji, the salary slip, it provides you your income, current income. Okay, but can bank assure that you will still work in 5 years' time? So that's why the government servants, the government staffs, they have advantage at this case because their employment is considered secure as compared to those in the private sectors. Okay, and sometimes that's why in the government sectors, staffs, they may enjoy better rates as compared to the private sectors because of the security of their employment. Okay, so this is where the risk that the bank needs to take. Okay, because they promise to pay, yes, based on current income, yes, they can pay, but can they sustain their works for the next 9 years, for the next 30 years kalau kita cerita pasal housing loans. Okay, so this is the risk that they have to take as a bank, whether the bank can pay, whether the borrower, the customer can pay back. So if the customer cannot pay back, okay, or sometimes they may skip their payments, kita panggil dia default lah, defaults. Okay, defaults. So as I said, risk promise cash flow not paid in full, and there are some issues lah, okay, during certain era, okay, whereby we have a lot of credit issues, especially when we talk about credit card. Maybe nowadays not so much. Credit cards is not considered as the major cause of credit risk anymore, because the government already put in place some some policies to avoid this. But during the 1980s, 90s, there's a lot of issues with credit cards because last time masa tu, there's a lack of policies. Some people may have about 5, 6, 7 credit cards. Okay, but now not anymore. Usually people will have maximum 2 or maximum 3 credit cards only. Okay, and this was the last time of credit card loans. But nowadays, credit risks usually involve, like I said, high purchase. High purchase or housing loan. Housing or personal loan. Okay. Out of these three, yang paling susah is actually personal loan. Why? Because personal loan is without any collateral. So therefore, if the person cannot pay back, they don't have any securities. Okay, unlike housing loans, for example, if the customer cannot pay back, the bank will repossess the house. So the bank will have assets. So not so bad. Hire purchase depends on the cars. Okay, because some cars have values even after a few years. Some cars, the value of the second-hand value too will drop tremendously. That's why these two hire purchase and personal loan is considered the two major credit risks for the banks. Okay. So the implications of borrowing credit risk, the bank needs to be very strict. Okay. Meaning if they want to approve the loan, they have to be very strict. So they have to have a proper credit screening. So meaning before we approve the loan, we need to check our customer whether they qualify for the credit or not. Okay, so that's what is meant by credit screening. They have to screen their customers. Okay, they have to monitor as well, monitor their credit extended to the customer. They have to. That's why in the banks they have what they call as the collection team. Okay, what they do, they will call customers to make sure customer bayar on time. If the customer forget to pay, they will call you to remind. So that's the importance of monitoring. Okay, or else customer uh, will go uh, uh, apa panggil, unpaid lah. The loans can go unpaid. Therefore, the banks needs to monitor closely. It needs to adjust their credit risk elements and diversify their credit risk. So you cannot just focus to one customer. They have to diversify, try to get the best customer in terms of minimizing the credit risk. Next is liquidity. This is number 2. After credit risk, liquidity risk. Okay, so liquidity risk occurs when deposit demands immediate cash, meaning they want to withdraw immediately, and sometimes they don't have enough cash. Okay, they don't have enough cash available. Okay, so the demand for withdrawal they have to fulfill on daily basis. At certain times, for example, you imagine during during festive seasons. Okay, masa itulah among others, time people want to withdraw a lot of money for their expenses. Festive season, Chinese New Year ke, Hari Raya or Deepavali, Christmas, whatever. During those periods, usually people will withdraw money. Okay, so as a bank, they have to ensure that they have enough cash available. Remember, in their accounts, not everything is cash or cash equivalent. Sometimes they invest in somewhere yang non-liquid. So in order to avoid the liquidity risk, the bank needs to have a proper asset liability management in order to ensure that they have enough liquidity. So if there's problem with regards to liquidity, they have to sometimes borrow money. Okay, borrow money. So that's why liquidity risk is very important, because when we have liquidity crisis, and akan ada confidence issue. Okay, confidence issue, especially kalau people tak confidence with your bank, katakanlah your bank have issues with regards to securities, with regards to legal issues, people akan withdraw your money and go to other banks juga. Okay, besides withdrawal for normal withdrawal, sometimes customers can withdraw because of trust issues, lack of confidence. So they can switch from one bank to another very quickly. Sekarang kita boleh transfer fund immediately kan. So that's why liquidity risk pun quite crucial to the bank, to ensure the bank has enough liquid at the same time to sustain their business. Okay, ni baca lah. So we have two types of liquidity risk, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is risk not being able to convert assets into cash immediately. Okay, this is especially when they have a lot of non-liquid assets, too much. Okay, type 2 risk is when they don't have access of funds to meet requirement. So ni kalau dia ada issues with other banks lah, they cannot borrow with other banks because of credit issues. Okay, other banks don't want to give credit to you, don't want to give funds to you, for example, because of whatever reasons. Okay, but mostly the banks in the country, they don't have this one most of the time. Usually the relationship between the banks usually okay. Number 3, interest rate risk. The interest rate risk is usually the difference between ataupun the mismatch, we call them the mismatch between maturities of assets and liabilities as compared to the interest rate that you have. Okay, so contohnya kat sini we have liabilities that will last for 1 year, but your assets will last longer. Okay, remember our deposits and also our financing just now. So liabilities is deposit, okay? And assets is financing. So there's always a mismatch between the two. Remember, our risk, our interest rate charged to the depositors, it's not the same as our what we call for the financing. So imagine customer deposit for 1 year. Okay, imagine 1 year, and the rate is 3%. So you need to pay 3% to them. Okay, but they will withdraw. Okay, they will withdraw this amount of money after 1 year. But your financing lasts for 2 years. So for this period, where the fund will come from? Because this 1 year they withdraw. So they need to keep on getting the deposit from other customers. Okay, so the mismatch between this 3% and example financing here is 5%, for example. It will always be there. It will always be there because of the mismatch between the maturities, and this uncertainty to get deposit from other customers. This is what we call as exposing to the interest rates. Okay, because these new depositors maybe want more in terms of the rates, not 3%, maybe 4 to 5% maybe. So what happened to this return? So this is the mismatch that they will face. Okay, baca ni, I don't have enough time ni. Number 4 is market risk. Okay, market risk. This is more on interest rate juga and forex. We've discussed the forex risk in topic number 3 last time because of the difference between the interest rate that you borrow and you receive from your customers, and also the difference between the foreign exchange, because the exchange rate change from one time to another kan. So your returns might be affected because of the difference of exchange rate. I will not go into detail about this. Right, and number 5 is insolvency. Okay, insolvency, this is more go to bankruptcy lah. Worst case scenario, you are exposed to bankruptcy. Risk of insufficient capital. You don't have enough capital to sustain your business. You don't have enough capital to run your business. And worst case scenario, you are exposed, your company, your bank, to bankruptcy. Okay. And how this happened? Basically because of various factors. It can be because of excessive interest rate factor. excessive credit. So one example I can give you, maybe during 2007, 2008, I have mentioned before as well. Because of credit risk, excessive credit risk, some banks in the US faces this bankruptcy risk because a lot of customers cannot pay back the loans. So they have an excessive credit. They give out loans, credit to customers who don't have income, who don't have jobs. Okay, and this customer cannot pay back, and therefore their credit risk or their credit payment to stuck. They don't have income. So what happened? Some of the bank, if cannot be saved by the government, goes bankrupt. Okay, because of the credit risk. Okay, so of balance sheet nanti, I think you have to read on your own. Kalau you tak sure, you nanti refer back to me. And there are other risks as well. So ada forex risk, ada discuss. Okay, this is specific for country or sovereign. When we talk about sovereignty ataupun sovereign risk, this is specific to the country. Okay. For example, I can give maybe during sovereign risk, maybe during 1998, you watched the video with me last time, whereby during 1998, 97, there's a crisis with regards to hijacking of financial markets and currencies. And it affects the whole country. Doesn't matter you are from which area of industry, you will be affected. So that is sovereign risk. Okay, similarly, kalau your country is exposed to war, for example, political issues, all of those are considered under sovereign risk. As a whole country. Okay, exposure to foreign government. So ni example yang dulu lah. And then technology and operational risk. In the banking system, technology risk involved with the technology that we use. For example, the fraud risk, scam, itu semua masuk dalam teknologi and operational lah. So operational risk termasuklah fraud as I mentioned. Kalau ada system malfunction, I give you fraud. Your staff, okay, employee of banks do fraud, scam, okay, ataupun outsider use technology to hijack your money. Okay, apa panggil? Scam kan? Transfer funds from your account without you knowing. For example, all of those are based on technology and operational risk. Okay, technology breakdown, system fail to recognize payments, and all of these are part of technology and operational risk. So this is one of another factor lah, and this relates with trust as well. So if the bank have these problems, you may end up with the trust issues, and customer will, choose to shift their money to other banks. Okay, so you have to ensure this technology operational risk will be at the very minimum. Okay, fraud, as I mentioned, errors. Okay, transfer fund patutnya 10,000, demi transfernya 100,000, for example. So this will affect reputations and obviously loss lah. Loss. Lagi ni operational risk. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. So this is what example of operational risk lah. You have problems with quality of personnel, staff you tak incompetent. So semua ni ada solution dia lah. How to get a quality personnel, you can send them for training, backup the system and so on. Anyway, so that's the risk affected the banks. Okay, a lot of angles from the credit risk sampai lah the operational risk. So now, I want to discuss about what you need to do for our next meeting. Okay, so this will be your second task. Okay, you have the banks already, you remember. Everyone have the banks, ada yang HSBC, Affin, Bank, CIMB, Maybank, Hong Leong. All the 8 local banks together with one HSBC, if I'm not mistaken. So we have 9 groups. So what you need to do, okay, I will upload this question juga nanti dalam assignment in my group, but I will show or I will share with you now first what you need to do as a continuation from your first task that you've discussed about. Cuma masa first task you don't do your own bank. I asked you to discuss about Islamic banking and so on kan. But now you need to use your own bank that you choose. Alright. You are required to prepare short slide presentations. These slide presentations. There are two parts. Okay, first is deposits. Second is financing. And each deposit and financing, you have to explain 4 types each. So what does it mean by 4 types? I just give you an example. Under deposits, if you remember, I said tadi, you have a lot. So we have current accounts, we have savings, we have FD, we have negotiable deposits, total. So you need to explain each and every one of these according to your bank's accounts. Okay, they have their own names. Current account ni adalah current account. I don't give you example lah. Okay, maybe satu example lah. I tak nak sebut bank, dia ada nama dia. M-Star current account contohnya. So you explain lah what does it mean by M-Star current account, what are the terms of the features, the benefits if possible, how much you need to open the account, how much you have to pay, who are eligible to open the account, what documents you have to have in order to open the account, how old are you in terms of eligibility, 18 and above ke, below 18 years pun boleh buka ke, and all of those you have to discuss. Okay, that's one, current. And then you discuss about savings account pula. Sebab savings account, one bank have multiple accounts, ada macam-macam. Okay, you just focus on one for each type. Okay, and just to let you know, some banks don't have these negotiable deposits. So if your bank doesn't have negotiable deposits, you choose current account or savings or FD to compensate whatever you don't have. So meaning you want to explain 2 current accounts, 1 savings, 1 FD. Okay, you don't have to explain all accounts for current yang ada. For example, kalau bank tu ada 5 current accounts, you don't have to explain all 5, just one of each category. And for financing, you have a lot. Okay, for financing, we have hire purchase. Okay, which is car loan ni, car loan. You have housing loan. You have credit card. You have personal loan. You have business loan kat sini juga. So you have a lot, but you just choose 4. And each hire purchase, for example, dia ada banyak juga. Ada hire purchase, they sometimes ada few schemes. You just choose one. Okay, or else your presentation will be 1 hour, 1 group. I don't want that. Okay, just choose one category of account, and each category one type. Right, so 4 for deposits, 4 for financing. Okay. According to your choice of commercial bank that you choose earlier, and must be the same. Okay, and then you explain like I said, benefits, features, the rules and regulations of the terms and conditions of the accounts, and if possible, find the rates. Okay, sometimes in the bank's new website, okay, by the way, you don't have to go to the bank during PKP. I expect you to go to the bank. You can gather all of this information online. Okay, you can go direct to the bank's official websites. Okay, or you can use the third-party financial services punya web portals. I shared with you last time. Kalau you ingat, maybe I share again today lah. For example, iMoney. You can use this to get the rates of loans. Kalau ada deposit, carilah deposit kat sana. Dalam savings ni ada deposit juga. Savings account and whatever deposit that the banks have. Okay, for financing, you can go for loans. Kat sini ada all the rates of your banks. Okay, besides money, you can use apa lagi ya? We have Loan Street. You can use Loan Street juga, for example. Okay. All the rates ada kat sini. I'm not sure ada deposit or not. So you have to explore more lah. I just give you a few. Ada dua, dia ada banyak lagi It's not these two, I have more actually. So use your creativity, be resourceful, okay? Cari with the proper keywords to find information, okay? And I believe you can get all the information. Okay, so remember 4 for savings, sorry, not saving, 4 for deposits, 4 for financings. Okay, so next week, our next session, we will do this presentation. Okay, so this presentation basically will cover the parts of the products offered by commercial banks. Okay, kat sini pun you can go through lah, but I want just you to focus on deposits and loans. So after your presentation, I will finish up with the card services and banking. Okay, so ni some clues. Kat sini ada clues lah. So deposit ada savings, current, FDs, ataupun GIA for Islamics. And these are two others, NICD, negotiable deposits tadi. And then loans, ada macam-macam ni. You just need to choose 4 je out of all many ni. Okay, so ingat this is products. I'm talking about products. So don't nanti I bagi tahu siap-siap lah sebab for the past few semester mesti akan ada je keluar. Dia punya products kita pasal ATM, okay, card, debit card, that's not products. Okay, itu services yang diberi. Okay, I don't want that. Okay, yang kalau kat sini semua bukan. This is all not part of products. You don't talk about internet banking, you don't talk about debit card. Okay, try to focus just on these 4, any of these 4. Okay, property loan. Kalau you rajin baca, what is block discounting? Semua ni ada especially for big banks, they have almost all. Ni tadi ada cerita pasal syndicated loans. Okay, unit trust loan, if you refer to ASB, some banks offers ASB loan kan. So that's part of unit trust loan. So we can talk about that as well. So be creative, all right? You don't have to submit anything, you just present on that day. So we have 9, so hopefully we can settle everything by the end of the class lah, all 9 present on the same day. All right, so any questions? So next Monday will be on the 7th. Okay, so your presentation for this task 2 will be on the 7th, on the 7th of December. Okay, so one group, roughly around 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, last time you pilih seorang je kan to present. Now it's up to you. But make sure it will be, it will be, call it smooth transition lah. If you want to share the presentation among your group members, 4 or 5 of you, then you can negotiate lah, ataupun you can you can I don't know, negotiate among each other who wants to present and whatnot. But the marks will be given based on groups. Okay, how you coordinate between one another is up to you. Okay, so kalau ada issues pasal group members tak participate, just let me know. Right. So I think that's about it. I will upload this task 2 in my group. Okay, later on with the next week punya deadline on the 7th, as I mentioned before. So I'll stop here for today, and we will conclude everything for this topic 7 by next week lah. All right. So thank you very much. And I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.